Hey there, welcome to Funlearn Talks, the podcast where we break down business, technology, and history into stories that sparks your mind and makes you smarter. I'm Adi, and we explore ideas that shape the world, from empires and entrepreneurs to code and culture. If you love connecting dots and asking why things are the way they are, you're in the right place. Let's get started with today's story.
Have you ever wondered what it was like to walk the smoke-filled streets of a booming industrial town in the thick of the Industrial Revolution? Imagine the English town of Birmingham in the mid-Victorian era, a place pulsating with change, growing rapidly as it swallowed up surrounding villages and countryside. This was not just any town, but a beacon of innovation and an epicenter of relentless work and production. Birmingham's transformation is a story of dramatic growth and profound social change, a narrative that sees a modest market town burgeon into a vast metropolis of over 200,000 inhabitants by 1850, leaping from a mere 11,000 at the start of the century. The atmosphere in Birmingham was charged with the energy of creation and the soot of hard labor. Towering chimneys painted the skies a thunderous gray, and the air was filled with the relentless noise of industry. Machines dominated the landscape, demanding more labor, more work, and more toil, irrespective of the human cost. This town was not just making products, it was forging the future, producing a range of goods from buttons and guns to jewelry and buckles. Every corner of Birmingham buzzed with the spirit of application, though not all were charmed by its sprawl and grime. Walter White, a reporter of the era, described it as a city of dismal streets, yet marveled at the huge smoky toy shop that lay behind the industrial facade. Yet, amidst this bustling industrial landscape, there lay hidden gems like a road called Bridge Street, which in 1861 housed a rather unexpected venture. A cocoa works. This wasn't just any factory, but the establishment of the Cadbury brothers, who were on the brink of transforming not just their family fortune, but the very nature of how we enjoy chocolate. The factory, tucked away behind grimy backstreets and past busy stables, could be found by following the rich, alluring scent of cocoa that cut through the sooty air. George and Richard Cadbury, young and determined, found themselves at a crossroads here in the early 1860s as they faced a crumbling family business which their father, John Cadbury, could no longer manage alone. Let's delve deeper into the brothers' story. George, intense and focused, and Richard, with a gentler demeanor, were the quintessential Victorian gentlemen in their Quaker attire. But beneath their composed exteriors was a well of ambition and a determination to overcome the dire financial straits their company faced. "I fixed my eye on those who had won," George once confessed, revealing his approach to life and business. It was about learning from success, not failure. Just imagine walking through the Bridge Street factory, as Walter White did back in 1852. The overwhelming scent of cocoa beans from the Caribbean filling the storehouse, leading you into the roasting chamber where the air was thick with heat and the noise of transformation. This was more than a factory. It was a place where the raw became the refined, where hardship might just turn into sweet success. What does this chapter of history tell us about innovation, resilience, and transformation? Birmingham, with its factories and the Cadbury brothers with their cocoa, exemplify the spirit of an era, one of industrial might, but also of personal courage and community evolution. And perhaps, it's a reminder that within the bustling engines of industry and the grey skies of progress, there are stories of human endeavor and dreams taking shape in the most unlikely places. Now, picture this scene. It's the mid-19th century, and inside a grand chocolate factory, 4 massive ovens cease their rotations. The once vibrant facility, guided by a potent 20-horse steam engine, has fallen eerily silent. George Cadbury, just 21 years old, paces back and forth, the faint glow of dying embers, the only light in the gloomy expanse of the roasting room. The chocolate business, once a bustling hub of productivity and morality, was on the brink. The fact that their stock of raw cocoa could last for an astonishing 300 years highlighted the dire straits they were in, a business evaporating before their eyes. Let's pause for a second and consider the weight of that moment. With only 11 girls left employed in what was described as a school of morality and industry, George faced a pivotal decision. Should he abandon his dreams of medicine to rescue the family legacy? Or was it time to close the doors for good? Imagine the pressure of that choice. knowing the business had once thrived under his father, John Cadbury, who had proudly walked a visitor through the bustling factory almost a decade earlier. This backstory isn't just about chocolate, it's deeply woven with personal tragedy and resilience. John Cadbury, the patriarch, wasn't just a businessman, he was a father grappling with immense loss. His wife, Candia, battled consumption, now known as tuberculosis, for years, rendered frail against a disease Victorian science couldn't conquer. John's desperate attempts to save her, from seaside retreats to consultations with the best doctors of the time, were in vain. After Candia's death in 1855, John was shattered. His grief led to a debilitating arthritis, pulling him away from the business and ultimately contributing to its decline. The stakes were incredibly high for George and his brother Richard. Not only were they deciding on the future of the family business, but they were also battling the legacy of their father's broken spirits and the industry's challenge in popularizing cocoa as a drink. Keep in mind, during the mid-19th century, cocoa wasn't the widely beloved treat it is today. It was primarily consumed as a greasy drink, due to unseparated cocoa fats which accounted for up to 50% of the bean. The concept of mass-produced chocolate confectionery hadn't even been dreamed of yet. What's surprising is how pivotal this moment was for the chocolate industry itself. Europe was just beginning to develop a taste for this exotic commodity from the New World, yet no one had cracked the code on how to transform these oily beans into a profitable venture. The Cadbury brothers stood at a crossroads that would not only determine their future, but also potentially shape the entire trajectory of how chocolate was consumed and perceived. This is where things take a turn. Instead of succumbing to the seemingly inevitable decline, George decided to throw his lot in with the family business. The decision was fraught with risk, but it was also filled with potential. With every step they took from that point forward, they were not only trying to salvage a family legacy, but were also laying down the groundwork for what would become one of the most iconic names in the chocolate industry worldwide. What unfolds next is not just a story of chocolate, it's a tale of overcoming adversity, embracing innovation, and the transformative power of dedication and hard work. As we follow the Cadbury brothers on their journey, it's a testament to how visionaries can change the landscape of an industry, shaping not just their destinies, but also the tastes and cultures of societies around the globe. Interesting, right? Let's keep going and see exactly how George Cadbury's gamble paid off, turning desperation into a dynasty. As George Cadbury candidly reflected on their cocoa drink, it was evident that only a mere fifth of their concoction was actual cocoa. The rest? A hodgepodge of potato flour, sago, and treacle. Essentially, a comforting gruel rather than a luxurious beverage that entices one's palate. Despite imaginative names like cocoa paste and soluble chocolate powder, what customers got was a block of fatty paste, not the delightful powder many might envision today. To enjoy their cup of cocoa, folks would chip away at this block, dissolving bits in hot water or milk. The Bridge Street factory, where the Cadburys toiled, saw most of its business from tea and coffee, not the cocoa that bore their name. Now, one would assume cocoa, marketed as a health drink, was wholesome. But the reality of the 1860s told a different story. Some traders, tempted by greed or perhaps sheer desperation, added everything from brick dust to iron filings, sometimes even hazardous substances like vermilion and red lead to stretch the cocoa further. Imagine sipping your morning drink, only to realize it contained elements that could lead to severe health issues. But let's back up a bit. Why were Richard and George stuck with this struggling cocoa business in the first place? Well, being Quakers in 1861 England wasn't exactly a walk in the park. Higher education at Oxford or Cambridge was off limits to them, military service was a non-option due to their pacifist beliefs, and even a career in politics was barred. Thus, business was one of the few viable paths they could tread, yet even here, the Quaker community had strict rules. A failing business wasn't just a personal embarrassment, it was considered akin to theft, possibly leading to being disowned, or worse, facing the grim conditions of debtor's prison or the poorhouse. With such high stakes, the brothers faced a dilemma. The easier route would have been to abandon the tarnished Cadbury name and start fresh. Yet, there was something in these young men, a relentless drive encapsulated perfectly when one colleague described George not as a man, but as a purpose. The factory floors and offices were confining, barely larger than a coffin, but there within those walls, the resolve of the two brothers became evident. To the dwindling number of employees fearful for their future, Richard Cadbury was a figure of jovial resilience, always smiling. George, on the other hand, was stern, his very being tightened like a coiled spring, ready to unleash his indomitable will on whatever lay ahead. So despite the seemingly insurmountable odds, Richard and George stood their ground. They chose to confront the decay. The reputation tarnished by years of decline and questionable practices, fueled by the vigor of youth and the stern, unyielding discipline that would soon become the stuff of legend. Think about it for a moment. Here were two young men, cornered by societal restrictions and familial expectations, in an era where the wrong move could not only ruin them financially, but socially and legally as well. The choice to rejuvenate a floundering business rather than abandoning it for potentially greener pastures speaks volumes of their character and vision. This pivotal moment wasn't just about salvaging a business. It was about setting a course that would redefine their legacy and impact generations to come. Isn't it fascinating how, from such turbulent and humble beginnings, monumental legacies can emerge? Let's keep going to see how the Cadbury brothers transformed adversity into opportunity, reshaping not only their destiny, but the very fabric of the chocolate industry. As Napoleon plotted his dominance over Europe at the end of the 18th century, the Cadbury family, led by Richard Tapper Cadbury, exemplified what Napoleon dismissively called a nation of shopkeepers. Little did he know, he was vastly underestimating a group that would soon extend its reach globally. Richard Tapper's journey began quite dramatically. Picture this, a young boy of just 14, leaving his family in Exeter, perched atop a stagecoach bound for a new life, his heart heavy with both excitement and sorrow as he bid farewell to his parents, who rose early just to see him off. The scene must have been poignant, his mother possibly brushing away a tear, his father's firm pat on the back, a mixture of pride and concern in their eyes. That's it for today's episode on Funlearn Talks, where stories from business, technology, and history keep your curiosity alive. If you enjoyed the journey, make sure to follow, rate, or share it with a fellow curious mind. And hey, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment or connect with us online. I'm Adi, and I'll catch you next time, right here on Funlearn Talks. Until then, keep learning, keep wondering.